Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Litany of Catholic Martyrs for June 25th. As always, make sure you pray for the families of those whose loved ones were martyred on Easter Sunday in Sri Lanka. I offer this devotion and this mission and this ministry as a stopgap, as a filler, so that we don't ever forget the martyrs, red martyrs and white martyrs, blood martyrs, and those of us who suffer, those who suffer martyrdom each and every day. I'm going to give you an example of white martyrdom right now, something I read this morning. This is from Church Militant. Just very briefly, an investigative journalist, his name is George Newmayer. He has been banned from the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. Because he did investigative work into the homosexual corruption in the D.C. area, in the Archdiocese of D.C. last year. So this Monsignor, Walter Rossi, he landed on this investigative reporter landed on this Rossi's hit list, most wanted list. In an internal memo, what he did was he instructed the Basilica security officers, first of all, it's a sad world we live in where we got to have security officers during Mass. So they wanted him to notify police if he set foot on church property. So this is what happened. This last Sunday, which was the solemnity for Corpus Christi, so he was actually in church celebrating the Mass, or he was at the Mass. So what they did was, I noticed that a number of, this is him, Newmeyer speaking. I noticed that a number of the security guards were casting meaningful glances at me, and at one point I think one of them recognized that I appear on that security watch poster. And I think then they called the higher-ups at the Basilica, and I think that's when they set the removal in motion. I was actually surprised that they would go to the trouble of removing me. This Monsignor, who's in the middle of this homosexual predation scandal, he's up to his eyeballs in it. And then Nehemiah continues, this is just a classic example of how the homosexual mafia operates. Those who live in darkness fear the light, and even a small journalistic one. So this is Church Militant sent him a list of questions, and this is the answer they got back. Following protocols initiated several years ago when Mr. Newmeyer received a barring notice for disrupting business activities, he was asked to leave the following Corpus Christi Mass and procession. All Catholics and non-Catholics alike, including Newmeyer, are welcome to take part in the liturgy so long as they don't disrupt the shrine activities. And this guy wasn't. He was just there at Mass, or threaten visitors and staff. So, this is an example of what I talk about when I'm talking about martyrs. Not only red martyrs, but white martyrs as well. It's a sad day that the hierarchy, it's not the church, it's the upper echelon of the church. It's these bishops and cardinals and many, many priests who are trying to hide the corruption within the church. The church that Jesus Christ built is pure and holy. The church that these guys are trying to pervert it to is not. So here today is a list of martyrs, men, women, and children who offer themselves as a living sacrifice for the church. In the territory of Guleta near Nusco at St. William, Confessor, founder of the Hermits of Mount Vergine. At Barea, the birthday of Saint Sosipater, disciple of the Blessed Apostle Paul. At Rome, Saint Lucy, virgin and martyr, with 22 others. At Alexandria, Saint Gallicanus, ex-consul and martyr, who had been honored with triumph and was held in affection by the Emperor Constantine, Eastern Rite. Converted by Saints John and Paul, he withdrew to Ostia with Saint Hilarinus, I don't know how you pronounce it, Hilarinus, 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 and devoted himself entirely to the duties of hospitality and to the service of the sick. The report of such an event spread through the whole world, and from all sides many persons came to see a man who had been a senator and consul, washing the feet of the poor, preparing their table, serving them, and carefully waiting on the infirm and performing other works of mercy. Be the same as Hillary Clinton doing those kinds of works. Yeah, we're not going to see that. Driven from this, well, maybe not. Pray enough for her, maybe she'll come around. Driven from this place by Julian the Apostate, he repaired to Alexandria, where, for refusing to sacrifice to idols, at the command of the judge Raution, he was put to the sword and thus became a martyr of Christ. At Sebopolis in Syria, under the governor Lysimachus, in the persecution of Diocletian, Saint Febronia, virgin and martyr, who was scourged and racked for defending her faith and her chastity, then torn with iron combs and exposed to fire, finally having her teeth plucked out and her breasts cut off. It is unbelievable the depravity and the horror that man can inflict on his fellow person, on his fellow man. This poor woman. She was condemned to capital punishment and went to her spouse adorned with her sufferings as with so many jewels. At Besançon in France, Saint Antonius, bishop and martyr who was killed by the Vandals for the faith of Christ. At Riez, Saint Prosper of Aquitaine, bishop of that city, distinguished by his erudition and piety. He valiantly combated the Pelagians in defense of the Catholic faith. At Turin, the birthday of Saint Maximus, bishop and confessor, most celebrated for his learning and sanctity. And finally, in Holland, Saint Adelbert, confessor, disciple of the sainted bishop Willibrord. These are the saints, these are the men, women, and children. These are the martyrs who suffered for the church, joyfully, gladly gave up their lives so that the church could grow. Think of them today as you go through your day, no matter what troubles we have. Think of Saints Febronia, good Lord, Virgin and Martyr. Think of all them, and our troubles are nothing compared to them. Thank you for all for listening. God bless you. Have a good